Hey, everybody, welcome to Strictly Speaking. It's so good to have you here on True Blue. I'm Bob Frantz. Today, we're going to go UFO hunting. What? Yeah, we're going to talk to Chuck Zukowski in a moment. He is the principal IC mass design engineering consultant with his company, Zukowski Consulting. He's got over 30 years of graphic mixed signal microchip design, and he's a former reserve deputy sheriff with El Paso County Sheriff's Department in Colorado. But he's not here for those things. Those things are awesome, but those things are not fun. What's fun is hunting UFOs. For 35 years, Chuck has been researching and investigating the UFO paranormal phenomenon. Say that back to back 5 times. As a field investigator, he's appeared on radio and television shows discussing his investigations. In fact, he was the host of Alien Highway on the Travel Channel. Chuck approaches every investigation from a skeptical point of view, which is probably a good place to be, looking for any known possibilities before claiming otherwise. He also implements innovative field experiments from time to time to enhance his investigations, looking for new evidence. Want a little taste of what we're talking about here? Watch this.
For years, I've been hearing this tale of this alien that escaped from Area 51. The escape is known as a Gate 3 incident. One of my informants, he's got information based on a deathbed confession of a person who actually worked at Area 51, and they said that not only was there a creature there, but that it escaped.
Is there any type of evidence that would lead us to believe that there is an alien out here running around?
My informant, he's got video evidence of this creature that was shot back in the early 1980s in Tonopah. Check your emails. I sent you the video.
Oh my God.
What is that?
That's why we're here.
And that is exactly why we are here. You start talking about escaped aliens from Area 51, I'm in. Let's welcome Chuck Zukowski to Strictly Speaking here on True Blue. Hey, Chuck, good to have you, man. How are you?
Hey, pretty good. Thank you, Bob, for having me on your show. Hey, the movie Paul. Did you ever see that movie?
Pulsed?
Just named Paul.
No, Paul. Paul.
Yeah,
No, I had
Paul.
not. No.
Okay, it's a comedy, but it's basically about a gray alien that escaped from Area 51. It was interesting though that they actually used basically the original story that alien had escaped way back in the day to help write that movie. So I thought it was
Really?
kind of interesting they actually made a movie and a comedy though, but it was funny.
Yeah. Well, still though, yeah, it is fun. These things are such interesting things to talk about. Look, I mean, I'll be 100% honest with you, Chuck. When I was a little kid, I believed everything I was told about everything that was really cool. Loch Ness Monster, oh, hell yes, it's real. Bigfoot, Yetis, aliens, every one of them. I mean, I'm not kidding. And as I got older, I was a little kind of disappointed to think, I was probably wrong. There probably isn't a monster in that water now. And there's probably not a Bigfoot or a Yeti or any of the other things out here. I want to still believe those things. And I'm certainly open-minded enough to say, guys like you, go do the research and show me some things. I want to get there. But take me from how you started when you were very young. What made you gravitate toward doing this for 35 years? You did more than just you say, yeah, I believe. You said, I want to prove.
Yeah, the issue with that is all my life, uh, I've had this just feeling that something was more than what we perceive and what we see. It was really interesting because even I guess I don't know, it was 6 or so, going to I guess it's like a Catholic school after regular public school, and I would debate the nuns or at least, and I get in trouble all the time because they would teach something and I would say, no, there's more to this. It's bigger than this. It's bigger than what you're saying. And it's not that I was contradicting religion, but what they were teaching us at the time, that it was very focused and on what they were teaching us. I said, no, it's much bigger than this. There's life everywhere. So I do remember when I was quite young, I did see something out in the sky. It's kind of hard nowadays to actually think about, did I really see it or did I imagine it? I kind of remember from what I remember, this has been such a long time ago that, the people in the town were speaking about it. And that's how I remembered. I lived in a small town called Safford, Arizona. And it's pretty much on a parallel line to Area 51. So if anything was flying to Area 51, hey, maybe it flew over our little town. Maybe I saw it. But that, as far as I can remember, I've always had an interest in the paranormal. And of course, the paranormal just does not mean ghosts. I know there's a lot of ghosts uh, TV shows out there
Oh yeah.
that use the word paranormal loosely just to mean ghosts. Paranormal is paranormal, other than normal. It means everything from Mothman to ghosts to Bigfoot to aliens to, Black Panther sightings that are mystic. So I pretty much kind of like got involved in all of it because it's just
Yeah.
so cool.
And you can see a lot of those things on your website, which is ufonut.com. Pull that up here real quick. First of all, I think it's hilarious because most people, when they think of people who chase UFOs or hunt these things or believe these things, they think you're nuts. So you're kind of making fun of yourself there with UFO nut, but it's not doing that. That's an acronym. What's it for?
Well, unconventional flying objects, non-human, unrecognizable technology. But I have to be honest with you, I had to come up with the acronym afterwards because
Oh, really?
yeah, because as long as I can remember, when I first started, well, actually, it's been about 35 years now. So when I started getting involved in doing actual investigations, then people were calling me a nut. Oh, you're crazy. You're just some UFO nut. You're this, you're that. And instead of getting mad, I decided, I'm just going to roll with it. Why try to? It's really hard to try and please everyone, obviously, especially today. You know, but it's difficult to sit there and argue or debate everybody. So hey, you call me a nut, great. I'll just take it. I'll own it. And actually, during COVID, I own it. So UFO nut is trademarked, and that's mine.
That's when you actually came up with the acronyms during COVID?
Well, no, I came up with the acronym 25 years ago. Over 20 years
Oh,
ago is when I created the website, and then I created an acronym to UFO Nut. But during COVID, I trademarked the word UFO Nut.
oh, I
So I
gotcha.
own it. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you've
So
been
now
doing that.
I am officially the UFO Nut as far as the United States is concerned.
So you've had this website since we were all dialing up with the dial tone on AOL, right?
I tell
I
you
mean,
what,
25
because
years.
I'm kind of a techie. Because I've been working in IC mass design engineering. I'm a microchip designer, but it's graphics, more of a graphics design portion of microchip design. And so when I wanted to create my website, there wasn't places like WordPress out there or anything. So I just grabbed an HTML book from the local bookstore, and I wrote my own website.
You
And
wrote your own code.
I did it all. Yeah. I mean, the code was out there. You just had to learn how to do it, and I just did it.
Yeah.
And then when WordPress came around, then I was able to convert with the help of a good friend of mine to WordPress, and it's a lot easier now than having to write your own code.
No
That's
doubt.
how I started out. Yeah,
So what kind of responses or reactions did you get in when you 25 years ago? So what are we talking about? 1998 ish, right? That's
yeah.
about 25.
'98. No, that was
What do
about the
people
time
think?
I
So you
actually.
created your own website.
Yeah.
You looked up the HTML. You figured out how to write the code and do the whole 9 yards. And people are looking. Did you have a lot of viewers? And what did you get?
Well, we really didn't have that much back then. If you really think, I mean, social media has really exploded in the past 10 to 15
Mhm.
years. But back in the day, if you wanted to get on the internet, you would have to do an FTP, a file transfer protocol, to a college or to a large company to be able to get on the internet. So no, there wasn't much out there
Did
that.
you expect it to blow up the way it did? Is that why you put all of your time and effort into this thing, thinking, "Yeah, there's not a lot of people now." Certainly, these didn't exist then.
Right.
Um, so, but did you like kind of know because you're a tech guy and because you're a microchip guy? Did you kind of think, no, people don't understand what I'm doing right now is going to be cutting edge because this is going to blow up soon? Did you know
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Actually, I was kind of that was the thought process. It's kind of hard to say like Bitcoins. I never got involved in Bitcoins when I first heard about them. I'm going, yeah, they may fly, they may not. There's so much you can do with it. But with the when I was working at Rockwell in Newport Beach, California, I had the opportunity of doing FTPs from my computer onto the internet, and I'm going, yeah, this is going to take off, and I want to be part of it. So that's when I created my website. Well, actually, when I moved to Colorado, is when I created my website. But
Okay.
did I think it was going to explode the way it did? No. It's kind of funny because back then you were thinking, oh, I think cash is going to be something that's going to go away, and we're all going to be using credit cards. And if you would have asked me that 20 years ago, I would no, we'll still be using cash, but it's actually going that route now. Where
Are we gonna end up being a cashless society sometime soon? Are you thinking that?
I have a feeling we will. And if we follow Elon Musk and we get microchipped, and we'll put our credit card in our hands and we'll just scan our hands and off we go, and then people
Do
will
that?
people will be shaking your hand with some type of a electronic device on a ring, and they'll steal your
Yeah,
information.
right. Yeah, I know. Any development they do that might be positive will eventually be countered. There's no question about it.
Well,
Would you do it if that's what they wanted, if that's what the movement was toward? Because there's a lot of people, and I don't want to get too terribly religious here, but taking the chip is like taking the mark, the mark of the beast, in order to buy and sell and so forth. Would you do it?
oh no, no, I
Nope.
would never do it. Matter of fact, I won't even do 21 and Me or any of that stuff. I don't want to know my background. My brothers and sister did it, so I have an idea, but I don't want something to come up in my DNA that maybe is not recognizable because I've been involved with UFOs so much. But no, I would never do that. I
I get
think,
a little bit. No, I'm sorry. I was going to say I get a little bit freaked out of the idea of somebody, who may know me, who may hate my radio show and hate my politics or something, and I got this guy's DNA right here. What could they do with it, and what could they sell it for? Where could they plant it? I mean, no, it's crazy conspiratorial stuff, but I do. I'm not. I don't feel like spitting on a stick and sending it to some stranger and saying, "Here is my DNA. Do what you want with it." I don't like it.
well, no, I won't even buy a self-driving car. I would never do that. And the reason for that is when I worked at Rockwell, I worked with a lot of very intelligent engineers, PhDs, software and design. And I tell you, if there's one person that can design it, there's another person that can hack it. You know,
Yeah.
and we've seen that with the CIA, FBI. A lot of the credit card companies get hacked. So, there's really smart people out there that can hack in. Now, if you have a self-driving car and it's software it's open to software for I don't know, for updates from time to time, or
Yeah.
or it's open for GPS, like your phones are using the internet, or actually using the cell phone companies. Then there's ways to get into your phone, there's ways to get into your vehicle and take control of it. And you're right, now if someone doesn't like you, they'll just run you off the bridge. So,
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I totally agree with that. I talked to on the show. I don't know if you know Joe Allen. He does the transhumanism. He's a transhumanism expert on the War Room with Steve Bannon. We had him on talking about, well, what just happened a few days ago. The first Neuralink implant into somebody's brain. That Elon did,
mhm.
and that of course leads to the whole idea of the melding together of human and technology to create the transhumanism, and supposedly it's supposed to be for good, but obviously anything that has a good potential intention, any positive application can be countered by somebody to use it negatively. And that's why I think it's terrifying. The fact that they're experimenting with this now means that 5 years from now, let me put it another way. I asked you in 1998. You made a website, which was pretty new thing to do. You looked it up and how to write it and so forth. And a few years later, we were in .com heaven, and it just exploded. How many years is it going to be before this first chip that was just put into somebody's brain? 5 years from now, people are going, "Oh, I remember when the first one happened," because now everybody's got them. I mean, is
Well,
it coming? You're a microchip guy. Is it coming?
yeah, I think so because the technology curve ramps up on different products. Like during the early 50s, late 40s, we had crystal diodes pretty much. Well, we had tubes, vacuum tubes, and then crystal diodes. And all of a sudden in the late 50s, we had microchips. And then when the first computer was actually designed with microchips and not a bunch of relays, the technology curve just kind of ramped. And so this could be the next technology curve ramp. And if that's the case, instead of 10 years, it'll be a lot faster because we have some pretty fast computers now that will be able to run computations in nanoseconds and come up with the answers you're looking for. So basically, it all depends on the public. It depends on like your viewers. Is that something that you want to do if there's a market for it? Now, we're seeing a downsize on EVs right now, electrical vehicles. There was a lot of politics involved with electric vehicles and how, there's governors and anyway, I won't go into the politics, but basically, there's states are saying we want to get rid of petroleum-based cars by a certain date. We're all going to go EVs, and so it starts ramping up until people start going, I'm running out of electricity and I can't recharge. I can't go 200 miles because I can't guarantee that there will be a station there. Oh, it's too hot. If I run the air conditioner, I'm going to run my battery down. Oh, it's too cold. If I run the heater. Interesting that it was when it's really hot outside, lithium batteries just have a tendency of discharging faster. It's funny how the car companies don't tell you that. Everything is like, oh, this car's guaranteed to go 300 miles. But okay, that is, perfect scenario, perfect temperature, probably low elevation, on and on. But that's not how it's working. And then now people are realizing that lithium batteries have got some pretty nasty stuff in it. You're strip mining for lithium. There's some, is it cobalt in there?
Cobalt, manganese, nickel, all of those things.
But
Yeah.
cobalt's the
And
nasty stuff. That's the stuff that's poisonous. And so if your car burns, I mean, once an EV starts burning, it's a multiplier effect. Every one of those batteries is going to short and go up. And if you got it in your garage, you can kiss your house goodbye because fire department can't put them out. So there's a lot of things now people are realizing. So the hype's kind of slowed down in 2024. And if you look at the automakers, they're kind of backtracking on building as many EVs as they said they would. Not that I want to go into this, but I think electric cars it's okay, but it's the wrong thing right now. The wrong type of batteries. We still need to do more technology and designing batteries that are eco-friendly. Right now, the majority of EV cars, you can't recycle the batteries. Well, you can. It's too expensive.
What are you? You're right about that. They don't decompose. So they're not biodegradable. What are they going to do? They're going to fill up landfills, and they're talking about trying to save the planet, which is why they're doing this. Then they're going to start dumping them in the ocean. I mean, in all seriousness, because they're not going to have enough room for them. Same thing with the wind turbines. And the solar panels, all these things that can't be repurposed in any way. So I don't want to go too far off into that. But
no, and you're right. And what's it's going to decompose in our soil, and it's going to go right to our water supply, and there you are.
Yeah.
We're going to kill ourselves faster, and so we need to. I mean, hydrogen, something else. We can use. There's a lot of things out there.
You just beat me to it. That was going to be my question to you. Is what are you hearing about hydroelectric cars or hydro-powered cars? Because I think that's the tech that's got to be next, and especially with EVs proving to be unreliable for all the reasons you just laid out. They're trying to find the next thing that might work.
Well, I mean, hydrogen. I believe Honda or somebody was already working with hydrogen cell cars. I know that back about 2 decades ago, somebody built a vehicle that supposedly ran on water, and you guys can look that up on YouTube. And so there's a lot of things.
Seawater, I think, too, right?
Yeah. So I think we just need to rethink the electric vehicles. Although electric vehicles aren't anything new, they were way back in the early 40s. There was
concept was obviously, but not the
way back then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's nothing new.
So we are going to talk about UFOs, I swear. UFO Nut is the website and everything else. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about some of the other paranormal things that are paranormal. But you just mentioned crystal diodes in the 1950s, and it was until the early 60s, I guess, when we started to get microchips, right?
Yeah, I think it was 58 or something was when they.
All right, I have to ask this. I'm not that guy. I swear I'm not that guy. But I think about Kennedy saying in 61, we're going to go to the moon before the end of the decade. And boom, sure enough, right before the end of the decade, 1969, away we go. He's not there to see it, obviously, but away we go. Based on that ramp of tech that you're talking about, did we develop the ability to go from crystal diodes a decade earlier to putting a man on the moon, lifting off and coming back, going through the Van Allen radiation belts and all of the other things that we would have had to solve then? Did that tech really exist in the 1960s? Because that's a big discussion. It has been ever since, and it still is today,
Yeah,
particularly on social media.
when I first started getting more involved in ufology, where I was doing serious research, and then, got into investigations. But there was, and it's funny how now you can pull stuff off the internet. You could completely, I could say something just ridiculous about here is evidence of an alien. I'm going to show it to you, and the powers that be, once they see it, they can physically go in there. There's programs, software programs, like trolls that go in and just wipe it all out and remove it. And we have that technology now. But there was back in the day when I first started researching, and I actually seen documentation where Bell Labs, there was an actual, like, a notebook that Bell Labs had that was a theory of designing microchips. It wasn't actually, this is how to do it. This was theoretical. And then all of a sudden we have microchips, and it goes back to, you know, Colonel Corso, who wrote the book The Day After Roswell. He was the one that was basically saying that we took some of the debris from Roswell, and it was up to him. He worked for the reverse engineering department under, I think it was General Trudeau. I'm sorry, I'm pulling stuff out of my head. But and then
If you had the Neuralink transmitter in there, you'd probably be able to pull this
I
up more.
know. I should call Musk tomorrow, but so he was taking that technology and folding it back into companies and universities in the U.S. that had already had contracts with the military, and then he was talking about microchips, night vision, fiber optics, and some other things that he was talking about in his book. Now, this guy was a very, decorated military person. He actually was responsible for getting our POWs out of Vietnam. But it's interesting, after the book came out, not really anybody in the military and the higher ups contradicted him and called him a fraud or anything like that. It kind of like let it go. Now, back in the day, there was something called the 1947 National Disinformation Act, where basically the government could release disinformation, but part of it had to be some truth, maybe 5%, But I can't even find that. I actually have somewhere, my files somewhere, because I've got, boxes of files in, storage, that I remember seeing that, but now I can't find it on the internet, the National Disinformation Act. It's interesting, though, how things just kind of, get deleted, maybe to make more space for new stuff, TikTok videos.
Well, it's funny you say that, because going back to what I was just asking about the moon, the moon landing, there was a point where NASA had to admit that they had erased all of the data. They lost the data, the original imagery and everything else, and they had to recreate it somehow. There was I can't remember exactly what it was, but if you look up anywhere that is any sites or any accounts on social media that are questioning the moon landing, and the debates happen everywhere, there's a video. I actually saw it not too long ago, to be honest with you, where they admitted that somebody had taped over or recorded over some of the important data, which made people say, is that because now the technology is better and you can create more realistic looking fake stuff in order to to sell your narrative that we went to the moon? I mean, all of those things are, I don't know, they're still out there, and I don't know how they get proven or disproven.
Well, it's now it's kind of fun, because if you look at some of the old Apollo landing, or the photos on the moon, that you'll see a different angle of the lunar lander but then you'll see this same mountainscape in the background, way off in the distance, and that's been pointed out multiple times
Yeah,
now.
that's one of them.
Now, the one of the explanations from NASA, not really officially, but someone working within NASA said because they lost some of that data, they actually had a studio and they had to recreate some data because they had to keep the hype up about the lunar lander to keep the budget going on,
Right.
so it became a budget thing. And I could kind of understand that because they were really interested in the budget. But then again, too, it's false information.
Some people have called the entire space program the biggest money laundering scheme in the history of humankind.
Yeah.
That means seriously, we put $100 billion budget together for NASA and say we're going to the moon, and we're in the moon, we're going to use it to do this, that, and the other thing, but it's essentially a great way to just repurpose money and say it's going to NASA. So, and I'm not saying that's true, but this is just the way the discussion goes. But I'm blown away by the fact that you heard it too, that they lost some of the data. It was considered to be in 1969, and today, probably the greatest achievement in the history of humankind, to leave the Earth, place human beings on another celestial body healthily, and return them alive. I mean, it's like we've never, and you're telling me that somebody must have left that laying around and somebody taped over it? Or somebody reused it for something. Oh, that was the moon landing data. You know what I mean? It's you'd think this stuff would be in a locked, quadruple or quintuple protected safe vault where everything is going to be documented and preserved for history. It's just kind of bizarre that it was just like so cavalierly handled to the point where they have to say, yeah, we might need to get on a soundstage and recreate a little bit of what we lost.
Yeah, and unlike the Japanese, when we landed on the moon, we landed right side up.
Yeah. Then there's that. Well, how many nations have sent something to the moon now? Not humans,
I don't know. I
but,
thought they were saying 4 or 5, maybe.
yeah, I think Japan, India,
Yeah, maybe India too.
the
But it was
Soviets.
interesting that so many decades ago when we landed on the moon, we did it right. And even with today's technology, and the Japanese technology is really phenomenal
Yeah,
that they didn't figure out a way of
right.
that scenario. And when you mentioned one of the things, and I mentioned in a blog recently that when I was a deputy, that when we were running code 3 lights and sirens to a call, and you knew the type of call, you would run scenarios. It's called mental movies. So you'd run some scenarios through your mind, and okay, there's a robbery in progress at a 7-Eleven. What do I do? Okay, I'm going to pull to the front. If there's vehicles in the front, I'm going to pull to the side, and I'm going to come in that way. If there's vehicles on the side, now the front, I'm going to pull to the left side. You have all that going through your mind. So when you show up, all the different scenarios that are pretty common, whatever plays out, you're going to know exactly what to do. Now, with the case of the Japanese, I guess that scenario about landing on its side, no, it's a box, but and it doesn't really have really long landing gear either. But you think that scenario would have came across at least once or twice? Hey, what happens if we land on the side? What if we land on our head?
Yeah.
They didn't think about that.
No, well, they had to have. I mean, I don't know. And I go back and think of what tech was like in 1969, and I feel like what's in here is more powerful than what they had in all of the rooms at NASA that sent a man to the moon and men to the moon. And
remember the Mars probe? Remember, wasn't a Mars probe? Wasn't it that they used instead of metric, they used standard or something, and it just
yeah. It's just
wow.
So, yeah, it's crazy. We're a little bit off of the topic.
Sorry about that.
It's funny. We're talking about us going into space and landing somewhere else, but the real topic is supposed to be what is in space that is coming and landing here. This is the point.
Now, I was going to say real quick, because of technology. Now, remember back in it's been about 10 years or so ago that General Ramey was holding. Has to do with Roswell. Was holding a letter or some type of note, and then Jesse Marcel was there, and this is when they were showing the, supposedly
weather balloon
stuff. Yeah. But because of today's technology, people are out there were able to focus in on that note that he had in his hand, and using, now that we have AI, it's going to be even better yet, that AI will be able to look at that and actually come up exactly what it says in there. And at that time, I think it said something about bodies and UFO or flying saucers and stuff. So it's interesting how technology can work in favor for us, from evidence in the past when it comes to ufology, to now, hey, this, now we can look at, well, DNA is happening all the time now. We're solving murders that were 20 years old because now, they're able to get a better signature of someone's DNA and
Right.
they convict them. So, I think it's going to happen the same thing with ufology. More and more stuff is going to come out because of that, and more people, because of social media, because of shows like yourself, like I'm on now, that takes the information out to the public, and the right people get a hold of it and go, you know what, I got the background, I could do this and I could figure that out. So it's kind of cool. It's a good time to live in right now.
Yeah, it really is. So give me an elementary primer here of Roswell and Area 51. And we're going to talk about Alien Highway too. But give because everybody knows Roswell. That's where the spaceship crashed. Oh, they said it was a weather balloon. Blah 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 blah. What do you believe it was through your 35 years of research? And then is Area 51 what people believe? It's where they went ahead and hid and stored the craft and stored the bodies and everything else. I mean, give us your background there.
Well, basically, I started investigations was Roswell, because I lived in California at the time, and anytime we went on vacation, we'd go on vacation by Roswell, and then we take off, and so I got to meet a couple of the original guys, Walter Hart, Glenn Dennis, and they knew me. And eventually, after a couple of years, Glenn Dennis actually gave me GPS coordinates to the BLM marker by the debris field. So that's how I got the GPS coordinates. And I've been out there a few times, did a couple of shows where we did archaeology digs and stuff. But the story goes that the debris or the wreckage that was found there went to Wright Field in Ohio, which is now called Wright-Patterson, because they had the only foreign technology reverse engineering department in the U.S. Now, the Roswell Army Air Force Base, or Walker Base, was our very first strategic command. That's where they basically trained the pilots for the Enola Gay. So it was our first atomic base. That's why I think it was really, interesting to other people. And so when they grabbed the debris, I think it went to Wright-Patterson Base or Wright Field, because they did have the reverse engineering department. But the problem with Wright Field, it's surrounded by residential. It's not way out, in the Toolies. So in the early 50s, they started designing Area 51 outside of Nellis Air Force Base. It makes it more secure. And then I think then the wreckage went there. Then you follow the Bob Lazar story. Then there were craft there too. Now, I always had an idea based on interviewing people that something did crash there, just because there's so many interviews and so many testimonies from different people. Too many things, too many interviews that all pertain to one event during a 2-3. We're still kind of, okay, was it July 3rd, 4th? That's always up in the air. But within a week or so, too much. It's focusing on that with too many people. I can tell you though, in 2022, I found a piece of aluminum alloy during an archaeology dig for the Sci-Fi Channel at the debris field, under about 6 inches of dirt. Now I released that. Well, it's been a few years ago that I released that, and it kind of just went, through the system. But now we have, more of a social media environment than we did 2 decades ago. That This last year, because I lectured in Roswell, I went out to the debris field beginning of June with a good buddy of mine, who's Frank Kimbler, who was associate professor at the Military Institute in Roswell. I took him out there because I was going to shoot some drone footage and some other things, but I took my metal detector, he took his metal detector, and within about 20 minutes, he found another piece. Now, he's found metal out there before, So he's found another piece of metal, and he found a couple pieces. He gave me one, and he took
Earth
one.
metal?
No, metal underground at the proposed skip site, which is the debris field. I went back at the end of June, back out there again with him with my new metal detector because my other one sucked. Not that metal detectors suck. It's just that what I ended up buying was a Fisher Goldbug Pro, and the frequencies are designed more for gold. Well, it turns out within about 15 minutes, I found some metal too. So between the two of us, we found pieces of metal under the ground. Probably we found about half a dozen pieces. Now there's a bunch of reasons why we're finding it more now besides technology. But the thing is so we took our pieces, and I had a couple of my pieces analyzed in a lab in Denver. He had a couple of his pieces analyzed in a lab in Albuquerque. Came up the same thing. It's a unregistered aluminum alloy. It's not registered. The X-ray spectrometer, the database, and the X-ray spectrometer couldn't identify it. And then the SEM, the scanning electron microscope, that data couldn't identify it. They can identify the elements, but they said the elements is we can't identify. It's not registered, meaning it doesn't mean that it's not from this planet. It just means it's not any metal that we've ever used for production on anything. And we've never built anything because it's not registered. So not only that, but both labs had looked at it. And it's funny that both guys said it, and they've never talked to each other because they didn't know each other. But basically they're saying, whatever causes a little tiny piece of metal was explosive in nature. There's melted pieces on the edges. We're talking about that big, these pieces. And there's holes blown through it. And it said whatever caused these metals was an explosion that shot them out. So I can guarantee you right now, Scout's honor, okay, I was a Cub Scout as far as I went, but that I can guarantee that something exploded or crashed at the proposed debris site in 1947. Well, I can't guarantee it was 1947, but I can guarantee it happened there. Now you have to get into other things like, okay, you know, how soil built up over the years, right? Erosion rates and stuff. Since we found some pieces under 6 inches, 8 inches, even 10 inches in the soil underground, we have to look at the erosion rate to see how far back, how many decades that is. But archaeologists use that with artifacts. But this is different because in that part of New Mexico, if there's a lot of rain and there's a lot of sandstorms and stuff, erosion can take dirt off the surface, and then it could put dirt back on the surface again because of everything that goes there. But why now are we finding more pieces? Well, because our metal detectors are better because of technology, and because over the years since 1947, there's been so much rainfall that sometimes the water will saturate in the soil and push the very, very light pieces of metal closer to the surface. It may take the heavier stuff and push it down. 1947, when the soldiers supposedly picked up all the metal, they would miss little tiny pieces like that. You can't see them. But until
that was going to be my follow-up, 2 follow-ups. Actually, it's really interesting that you mentioned that your friend said it was definitely something that exploded out. It was.
Oh no, there's a lab. That was that lab technician. Both lab technicians, one in Albuquerque and one in not my friend.
You and Kimbler, you found this stuff in the particular labs. Okay, sorry. Because there have only been some 5,000 movies and documentaries made about Roswell and about everything. One particular one that stands out to me, it featured J.T. Walsh, who's deceased now. He was like one of the generals or whatever. And I cannot remember the name of this one, but the premise was very similar to what every other one was, except for him saying, no, nothing crashed there. We shot it down. We had seen these before and we shot it down, it just struck me. And it was just a great premise for a great Hollywood, movie, or it was actually series. So it's like a limited, like 8 or 9 episode series that didn't get renewed for another one. I loved it.
Well, there's a couple different scenarios.
Hold on a second, Chuck, because That's it. Pull that up there. My man Ryan just nailed this for me. Dark skies.
Oh,
Did you
dark
see
sky.
that, Ryan? Did you see that yourself, or did you just look up what I was describing? I saw this one, I'm going to say 20 years ago. Dark Skies. That was it. J.T. Walsh was in it, and he was the general, like I said, and he declared that we had seen it before, we had been monitoring, and we got the threat level, and we shot it down, and that's why there were bodies that were still alive in the debris and so on and so forth. So, just briefly on that, Chuck, if you want to, what do you think the odds are that we actually shot it out of the sky and that it wasn't a crash?
Okay, well, there's two scenarios that I've always kind of lived by because there were multiple craft that were flying over Roswell. Nuns saw the multiple UFOs, and there's that's recorded that and then people there sitting on their porch saw things fly over, and there was a thunderstorm going on, and so one scenario is they were flying. Now, got to remember, the week or so before we had out at Mount Rainier, there was UFOs that were seen, and that's coined the word flying saucer. So we were on kind of high alert. Now, Roswell Army Air Force Base, they had radar. White Sands had radar, and then I've learned over the years that there was a portable radar out in the area in between, almost like a triangular, out where the debris site is, but a little further out. And they're direct beam radars. So basically, a direct beam radar is the same as your microwave. If they saw a blip up in the sky and they wanted a better signature, they would just turn the juice up. Now, I've talked way back at the time. I would talk to, I actually talked to two separate ranchers out there. They remember their dads saying that they came across burned birds that were just burned. Well, what happens is if they really turn up the juice on these radars and a bird runs or flies in between it, it just singes them. So the first scenario is these things they're flying during a thunderstorm, and you got three radar systems that are trying to get a signature on them coming from a triangular point, hitting them hard, trying to figure out what they are. There's a bolt of lightning or something because there's a lot of stuff going in, atmospheric stuff going in, causes them to hit. One goes down by the plains of St. Augustine or somewhere. The other one is our Roswell one. The other scenario is like you said, they were shot down. Now, how could they be shot down? Using the direct beam radar, not by missiles. That's too elementary. By using direct beam radar and turning it up, by messing with their guidance system or something, cause them to crash. That's the other scenario. That's how supposedly we shot them down, not using any conventional way.
Traditional, yeah, right, conventional ones. Okay, and then the second part of that, and then we're going to get into some of the other stuff on your website, is the fact that you guys are finding metals and finding these alloys that are unrecognizable. And not saying they're alien, but they're just not anything that we
Right.
have created and that are known. If the government is so secretive and committed to covering all of this up, they sent the soldiers out, like you said, to collect all the debris that they could find, but they couldn't find some of this because they were so small. Then they eventually got buried in the ground, and now they're rising up, blah, blah, blah. I would think that if a couple of guys can get better metal detectors, like you just described, and go out there and find these things, why wouldn't the government, which is trying to keep a lid on all of this, as that technology got there, they probably had it before you did, the metal detecting technology, to go out there and sweep the entire desert area for every little thing that can be found under the ground, to make sure that, that Chuck Zukowski and Frank Kimbler, I think it was, aren't out there gathering these pieces and taking them to labs and saying stuff that we don't want said.
And really, they could do that now. They could, but you see, back in the day, they did use metal detectors, but the only metal detectors we had was basically for Fe or iron because they were like to look for mines, and they were real big. They had maybe 4 discs on them or something, and they were out there looking. The thing is it's aluminum. It's so it doesn't fall into the iron side. It's a different metal altogether because it's an alloy. And those metal detectors back in the day probably wouldn't have picked it up because my Garrett metal detector couldn't pick it up. Even when we put the piece on the ground, I ran my Garrett metal detector over it and couldn't find it. I could find coins and all kinds of stuff. Can't find that.
Not that, right.
But the Gold Bug Pro from Fisher that is designed to look for gold, a different mineral, right? it was able to pick it up. And I found stuff within, like I said, 20 or so minutes when I was out there with my new metal detector. Now, if they went out there now with advanced metal detectors, then yeah,
They
they
probably.
spend it. But you know what? You're still going to miss stuff, and they can't. All they're going to do is they're going to focus on one area. But we're
Mhm.
talking, the stories of 200 yards of debris, and then over how many years now since 1947?
Oh yeah, of
It,
storms and
oh, it,
rains and
it
everything
could be
else
it
that
could
could
be
be
a half
blowing
a
it all
mile
over the.
away now. Matter of
Yeah.
fact, 3 miles away from the skip site. You see what the craft did is whatever happened to cause the crash, it came down and skipped off the ground like a frisbee, like you would skip a frisbee off the ground. And that skip is a debris site. We call it a skip site. And then about 3 miles further, um, supposedly an alien fell out and some more debris. 17 miles from the skip site is where it impacted. So, Alien Highway, we went to that 3 mile area, supposedly where there was debris that fell out of the craft and possibly an alien. The stories go back and forth on that. And the rancher had found debris, but because the military was keeping everybody quiet and threatening them back in the day, that he just hid them in a cave. And so we were there. That was one of the episodes of Alien Highway, was to look. Was there in fact caves in the area? Well, yeah, there are caves in the area. So at least the story is true that 3 miles from the debris site, there are tons of caves, and we proved that.
Wow. There are plenty of Alien Highway clips on the website on ufonut.com. But can people watch the whole episodes there? Or are they on YouTube? Where can people watch them?
Yeah, I think I don't know. They Amazon and some other places has
Okay, so
got them.
they're available. Yeah, because it's very fascinating for those. And also on your website, I wanted to go here too because and I'm glad you mentioned ranchers though because I'm looking at or thinking about the ranch animals and those that have been found mutilated. Pull that up, Brian. The animal mutilations, that is one of the links there. Yeah, that's what are we looking at here, Chuck?
Oh yeah, what have I read? Like 54 blogs on animal mutilations. um, yeah, so basically, this has been going on for a while now. I've actually found a an article. Actually, um, well, it was sent to me, but back in 1896 or 97, somewhere around there was a case where three animals were found dead, void of blood, after a UFO sighting in Missouri on this ranch. And there's a pretty cool article. I think I actually wrote a blog on that a couple of years back. So this isn't anything new, since what was it, 1967 or so, with Snippy the horse. That actually was named Lady the horse, but the press got it wrong. That was the first time that ever went public. But let's just say, since 1967, George Knapp actually came up with this figure a few years ago, that we've had over 10,000 cases of mutilations. Now, across the U.S. and just outside the U.S. But out of those 10,000 cases, all the cases that were investigated by law enforcement, no one's ever been caught or convicted or even recognized as the culprit. So when you do these mutilation cases, there's absolutely no evidence that points towards a predator or to a human. Now, people out there that are watching this are going, "Oh, that's crap." Well, no, it's not. No, because law enforcement, uh, you know, we train. When I was with the sheriff's department in El Paso County, Colorado, you would train some of your deputies to do cases where there's animal cruelty. So they would be trained to verify if an animal did die, it was animal cruelty, because that's a crime. And in a lot of states like Colorado, if you cause animal cruelty at least 3 times, that could be a felony. So now we're talking about that. Not only that, but if you're causing animal cruelty on a ranch in Colorado, the rancher has every right to shoot you by law. Okay, so this isn't anything that people could just get away
So
with.
what are some of the working theories then in the researcher community, in the places that the people you talk to? What are some of the theories about what's causing this then? If it's not being done by humans for all the reasons you said, animals devoid of blood and everything else, what are the theories?
Well, it's interesting because I mean, we and your viewers have to understand that we have no actual evidence ever on only on the mutilation cases that are categorized mutilations. points towards a human or towards a predator. Now, this is interesting. So, since I've been doing this, and I'm probably one of the leading animal mutilation investigators in the United States, not that I want to be, it's just I've done so many of them, that
Hmm.
it's the ranchers themselves. It's because I approach this as an investigator, as you know, a UFO investigator, and I asked some of these questions that people don't necessarily ask the ranchers. And I get about a 70% hit when I ask this question. Before the mutilation, did you see any unusual lights in the sky? About 70% of the time, the ranchers will say, yeah. And I go, describe what you saw. Okay, well, we had a case in Oregon last year. The rancher, I asked that question. He saw flashes of light. He says, the next ranch is 10 miles from my ranch. And there's nothing out in that field, but we were seeing flashes of light. Not quite sure what it was, but we saw it from our window in our living room. Another rancher, they see balls of light when they're closer. These look like orbs, not an orb. Orb is very spiritual. You know, if you're a ghost investigator, those are orbs. Balls of light are something that we've been seeing for a long time. During the 1940s, during World War II, our pilots and the Japanese pilots saw them, and our pilots call them Foo Fighters. You know, anybody can look up Foo Fighters, not the band. The band says they didn't get the name. Well, I don't care, but it was basically our pilots coined the name Foo Fighters. There were these balls of light that would follow the bombers and they would follow the fighter pilots. The Japanese thought it was our technology. We thought it was a Japanese technology, yet they were following both of us and kind of monitoring us. This is the same thing we're still seeing today. And they're seeing around some of these cases where there's animal mutilations. I've actually got photographs. I photographed some, I videoed them in Missouri and in Colorado. And then while we were shooting Alien Highway, we were doing one of our episodes in Missouri. And it's funny as hell that while we're filming, the ball of light is out in the background and we have to stop in the camera. So even while we were filming, we got it live. So these things, interesting. I think they might be mechanical. They may be probes. They may be more interested in our environment, only because of a couple of experiments I've done in the day where I think they were looking for changes in the environment. Very interesting things. It's unusual stuff.
So yeah, so Chuck, we don't have a ton of time left here to get into everything. We're gonna have to have you back on another day to talk about some of the other things, whether they be crop circles and rings, and like I said, why you can't catch a Bigfoot. It's one of the questions actually on your on UFO.com. But let's wrap it up with this. Bring us current on UFOs, and why is it in the past 12 months the government is starting to talk about it in ways they never did before, acknowledging there are things out there. There seem to be more pilots, Navy pilots or Air Force pilots out there reporting things and getting things on video because we have so much better capacity for that now than ever before. Why are they starting to acknowledge that, yeah, whether we call them alien technology or not, there are things out there in the, flying around in our air that we can't explain. There are things that we can't justify. Are they starting to come clean, or they just unable to cover it any longer? What's your opinion about why they're acknowledging this now and they never used to?
Okay, so we have social media is the biggie. Technology is second. So everybody's walking around with a production
The
studio,
video camera.
a
Yeah.
camera, photos, everything. So if they see something, it's now. Because of social media, they can put it right on social media and show it within minutes, right? And because we have a new generation of fighter pilots that don't fall in the norm of the old, they're coming clean. The pilots themselves, military people, are using their own phones, going, "Hey, look, we're getting tired of this. We're getting tired of our government, covering this stuff. There's something out there that we can't control. Our fighter pilots can't identify. Now, our Our
But
fighter
why wouldn't the government be silencing them, Chuck? That's the thing, because like I'm sure there were people, who did part of the debris field recovery. They said this is no weather balloon. We know what it was, but they were silenced. They shut up. You're not telling anybody anything or whatever. I don't know what they, whatever kind of coercive methods they did to shut them up. I still feel like a government that is powerful enough as ours is to censor anything that they want to can tell fighter pilots you didn't see anything. You want to have a career here. You want to have a future here. Your family. You don't want to have your family compromised in some way. You don't report this. What you recorded is fake. It's created with CGI. It's created with, some digitization or something like that. You know what I mean? They just seem to be willing to say, okay, you saw something we can't explain and we'll say that.
Well, I think they just lost a little control, and we have a newer generation of people in our government now. It's not old school. It's not during. It's not. The Cold War guys are getting out of our government, so that you've got a lot of younger people in there now,
Yeah.
and it's a different frame of mind, right? I mean, Congressman Schiff, right? He's the one that went public. Hey, we got cattle mutilations. Hey, we got this going on. So you even have congressmen, senators. They're out there and they're pushing the House, the Senate to get this out, and it's coming from, your representative basically, and the besides social media, you have, like I said, the new generation of fighter pilots. The stuff is getting out there more and more now, and then you can't control how many people we have in the U.S. that have cell phones. You can't control
340 million people probably.
yeah,
And yeah, the majority have cell phones from
yeah,
about age 6
you really
up.
can't control all that. So I think now we've always known that there was going to be some information was going to be released in the future. And matter of fact, 9/11 around that time frame, around that year, it was supposed to be this, this act where this information was going to go public, but something happened and it kind of stopped that drive. So it seems like every 10 years, 8 to 10 years, you have that drive to get this stuff released. Now to the point now, it doesn't matter. I know it's funny because I was just looking on the internet where some of the skeptics saying, well, these are just drones out there that people are saying, well, yeah, probably the majority of them are drones, but not our fighter pilots. Our fighter pilots, it's just when the technology on their jet can't identify it and they move so quickly, you can't catch them. There shows no exhaust. They have a different type of propulsion system. Now the Pentagon just came out not too long ago, representative just in the last week or so says, hey, we can't combat these guys. We don't have the technology to fight these guys. Now that's okay because these guys have been around for a long time. If they wanted us gone, we would have been gone decades ago or a century ago. That's not the point. I think whoever this is, they're just part of it now. They've been part of this planet. They're part of our culture now, and we should just accept it. And for God's sakes, we go out to the woods and we tag a bear.
Why
We
don't they
drug
reveal
him, we
the
tag him, and then the bear goes, "What the hell is this on my neck now?"
Well, why, if they're just part of us now, why don't they reveal themselves? Well, we always kind of look at it from the other side. Why won't the government tell us? Why won't the government reveal it? Why don't they just show up in the middle of a city where there's tons of people as opposed to a rural field where they can land safely? Why don't they just come down in the middle of Times Square and say, "What's up? Here we
Yeah,
are."
see, I wrote a blog on that years ago. I wrote a lot of blogs. So anyway, to think like an alien, you have to be an alien. That's the bottom line. So it's the same thing. If a cow's in a field and he sees a human walk by, a cow's thinking, "How come the guy come over here and pet my head or something?" I mean, we don't know what they're thinking. They don't know what we're thinking. Yeah. The bottom line is they have their own agenda, and we're just there. We're the proverbial bears in the woods and elk and stuff. And we're learning more and more now that
we may be the little subjects inside the petri dish. That's why they're coming down here and exploring and testing and all kinds of other things to see what our capabilities are, what our biology is like, what our bodies are like, and so forth, to see if we can harm them or if they can harm us. They may be just studying us until the point where they say, okay, now that we know who they are and what they are, if we deem them to be a threat or not, we'll do what we're going to do. And we may not find out until.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've been studying us for, if not centuries, decades. Just because there's a lot of sightings that go way, way, way back, centuries ago, And then there's the other case too, where there's another theory that they've been developing alien hybrids, and that's where cattle mutilation blood comes. Why is
Mm,
why is the blood always missing? You know, the cuts are there. The cuts, sometimes the cuts are in areas where there's glands. You know, so who's ever doing is interested in what's in the glands. And then there's other cases. I mean, when we were, we were messing around with in vitro fertilization. Our medical industry here in the U.S., they were using bovine hemoglobin to fertilize cells, and the government goes, "Oh, no, no, you're not going to make humans with bovine hemoglobin. You're going to wait till you can do it with human hemoglobin." So we had to wait. But during the battle, theoretically, I thought Vietnam actually used cow blood uh, during the war because you don't need to refrigerate it, and it's a quick fix until you get to a doctor where you can give them human blood. I know we were talking about it. Our military was talking about it, and they said, no, 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 we're not going to give our GIs cow blood. That's what the Red Cross is for. We're just going to ramp that up. So cases are there's also alien hybrid theory that they're using us to survive.
right.
Yeah,
Very, very fascinating. I'll tell you
yeah.
what, it's we had an hour together. I could do 10 hours of this and still have more questions next time. And I would love to have you for another time. I need to find out who in the hell actually built the ancient Egyptian pyramids, because I think there are a lot of questions there too. We didn't even get to the Bigfoot or so many, or ghosts, or any other of the anomalies in the paranormal. But I'll tell everybody to follow Chuck Zukowski, and make sure that you go to and bookmark UFOnut.com. Unconventional flying objects, non-human, unrecognizable technology.
I forget it
UFO Nut.
sometimes.
What's that?
Um, I said I forget that acronym sometimes, and I just want to let your viewers know that if you go to my website and it's only a few blogs back, it's called Anomalous Metal Alloy Found at 1947 Roswell Crash Debris Site. I want you guys to go there and look at the blog, because you'll see the pieces of the debris, you'll see the lab equipment, you'll see the lab results. When I put stuff out there, I put stuff out there for everybody to see, and I challenge me, because that's the only way I learn now is for
There it
people to
is.
challenge me.
There
Yeah,
it is,
there you
right
go.
there.
And there you go. That's the piece. That's one of the pieces we have. And
Wow.
you can see how it's folded over, and I mean, under a microscope, if you scroll down, you can get into where I've got like shots of 15 micron zoom. That's the actual
Wow.
debris
Look at
site.
that.
I keep scrolling. I don't know who's scrolling.
It's loading too slow. Were you sure? Were you sure we're still not using that HTML code that you did in 1998?
Yeah, so right there where it says data sheet, I guess that hasn't popped up yet. That kind of gives you the size of these things.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, well, we got that one shot right there, but that's we'll send people there. People could spend hours looking at this stuff. It's fascinating. And I'm telling you, that folded over, like, look at that metal, that is another feature of what was in that Dark Sky show. And again, like
yep,
I said, it's just a show, but I'm telling you, there was something about it that just struck me more than some of the other things you see, whether it be the ETs or the Independence Days of the world. But it was a really, really unique look at Roswell and what might have been. And that folded metal is another feature of that. So if you didn't see that one, take a look at it if you can find it anywhere.
well,
Chuck
now we
Zukowski,
know
thank you.
something actually did crash there. So it's what happened there now, not might happen.
Right. There you go. Chuck, thanks for coming on, man. Thanks for the fantastic look at all of this. We'll talk to you again down the line, okay?
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. You got it. Chuck Zukowski. Don't forget, go to ufonut.com and follow Chuck on social media. It's a fascinating look at this stuff. And if you liked it, make sure you share it. When you and leave a comment wherever it is that you're watching this video. If you're watching it on YouTube, or if you're watching it on watchtrueblue.com, leave a comment for us, and make sure you share this with people on your social media and your email lists. Let them know about Strictly Speaking, and let them know about Chuck Zukowski. Thanks for watching Strictly Speaking. We'll see you next time on True Blue.